ask me what my favorite software of all time is, I would tell you, in all seriousness, Adobe Photoshop. And you might be thinking, what the heck, Bryce? Your last two videos were literally criticizing everything that Adobe seems to do, which, yeah, I don't like Adobe. I really don't, but I love Photoshop, and I always have loved Photoshop. I grew up with Photoshop pretty much. Multiple people in my family use it professionally. I've got my 5.0 user guide here, which actually a lot of this guide is still relevant. Like, all the fundamentals here are actually still relevant. Yeah, some of it's outdated for sure. This is like 1998 or something, but seriously, I grew up with Photoshop. I knew more about Photoshop for years than I knew about computers, and I only got into computers once I got into Linux, and I've, told that whole story, but I have been using Photoshop personally and professionally for more of my life than I haven't, okay? And I still use it professionally, and I still have to use it professionally sometimes, okay? And I've actually made a whole video talking about trying to replace Photoshop with free and open source software, and pretty much concluding that it's not really possible. I can get, 90 to 95% of the way there, but I can't completely get rid of Photoshop, and that's true. I have it installed. I have proprietary software on my computer. Oh no, the FOSS police are gonna come get me. Oh no. No, but seriously, I have Photoshop installed. I run it with Wine on occasion. If I seriously cannot accomplish what I need to in, GIMP or Darktable or Krita or whatever, I do boot up Photoshop. I'd rather take 5 minutes to do something in Photoshop than 3 hours to try to find a workaround in GIMP. And sadly, that's just reality. And that's the reality for a lot of people, whether you're creative professionals or whatever else, that free and open source software is just not quite up to snuff professionally. And you might find that whether it's, video related stuff or audio related stuff. I actually have pretty much the exact same issue when it comes to DAWs, digital audio workstations. I use LMMS, I try to use it. I try to use other free and open source alternatives. Once in a while, I do still have to boot up FL Studio. It's sort of just, you can't always accomplish what you need to do. And especially when you're using something for work, when you're using it professionally, you have to meet deadlines sometimes. You can't afford to take the time to figure something out, or worse yet, spend hours on it and then realize that you just cannot do it. And this is, this is the unfortunate reality, and this is sort of why people like to give this argument of, I'm not going to switch to Linux because I value my time, which I think 5% of the time, that argument is valid. 95% of the time, it's not. And this argument has been, debunked so many times that I'm not even going to get into it. You probably understand all the reasons why that argument pretty much doesn't make sense. But I think 5% of the time, it does make sense, depending on your workflow, depending in particular on what programs you have to use, what your job is, etc. You might really encounter that, where if you value your time professionally, you simply cannot spend the time to figure out the free and open source alternative when it really might not at all be doing what you need it to do, and that option is there, in 2 clicks in Photoshop, okay? And I wanted to unpack this with a few examples. So first of all, I've seen a trend in recent years of people switching over to Linux just for customization reasons, like solely to race their desktops. And you see these screenshots with their raced out Spotify clients and raced out Discord clients, and honestly, it's kind of funny and ironic, but I'm all for it. I legitimately am all for that, because you know what? It got them off of Windows and onto Linux. So I'm happy. I'd rather see somebody take one step in the right direction rather than take no steps, okay? One step in the right direction is better. And, a lot of those people probably do eventually go down the privacy rabbit hole regardless. When I switched to Linux, that inevitably happened for me, right? I didn't care about privacy or free and open source before I switched to Linux, but, Linux and privacy circles, they're so intertwined that you do just eventually go down those rabbit holes if you're on Linux. It happens. So, you know what? I'm glad if anybody is taking any step towards free and open source software, and that's sort of my point here. I think we need to respect that, and unfortunately, I have seen at times, free software purists or extremists or whatever you want to call it, essentially saying if you're using any proprietary software, you're not welcome in these communities. You need to go full free and open source. And I think there's a few arguments against that. The first one being, you have to use proprietary software. In your daily life, you are actually forced to use it, because if you're using a modern car, or if you're using banking software, or software with medical records, or all sorts of other examples, in our daily lives that if you are living in the modern world, you just cannot avoid. Those are all proprietary software. Your car, if it was, made in like the last 10 years, does not have, none of them have free and open source software, but it's got proprietary software on it because the manufacturer put it there. And so many other pieces of our lives, no matter how much of a purist you are, unless you're literally living in the woods somewhere, you are probably still interacting to some extent with proprietary software. Okay, now, I know some of you are going to say, okay, but when I have the choice, I will never choose proprietary. And honestly, I respect that. I think that's, in a sense, I wish I were willing to die on that hill. I wish I were willing to be that extreme about my own personal software usage. But I can't be. I do try my best to use free and open source software, and I think everybody's going to draw this line in a different place. Everybody's going to have a different hill that they're willing to die on, a different place to, draw that border between when they're willing to use proprietary software and when they're not. And for some people, it might be, I will never use it by choice. And for other people, it might be, if it makes my life easier, if I don't have the time to spend on this workaround, whether it's for personal reasons or professional reasons or whatever, I'm going to use it. And I think we need to respect that and respect that everybody's going to have a different opinion and a different line to draw here. And the reason we have to respect that is because otherwise the whole message and advocacy for free and open source software kind of loses its meaning. The entire point of free software is giving people a choice, giving people the right to privacy and the right to have their data respected and the right to, have a choice here. And if we start trying to take away that choice on the, other side of the scale, then we're sort of just, losing our entire message there. I think we have to respect, if somebody is going to make some effort to use free software, even if it's not all the way there, I think we need to respect that. And, another example of this, the sort of idea of the good outweighing the bad, I'm going to be uploading this video to YouTube, and I literally just made a video last week talking about, I don't like a lot of the ways that YouTube handles things. And yet, I'm still going to upload this video to YouTube because my hope is the good of uploading this video will outweigh the bad. The good of me uploading the videos that I upload and trying to teach people things and give you new ideas and get you to think about stuff, right? That good hopefully outweighs the bad of me uploading to YouTube, okay? And that's sort of my approach in general for software and privacy and all of this sort of stuff. It's just a matter of choices and whether the good is going to outweigh the bad when it comes to those choices that you're making. And by that logic, we have to respect other people's choices, no matter where you are, down this rabbit hole or lack thereof. We have to respect it, and it's better to see somebody trying to use free and open source software and making an effort, even if it's not the extremist, purest level of effort, even if it's not, a total conversion to free and open source software. I mean, that literally makes it sound like a cult. I guess that's kind of, the in-joke. It is a cult. But anyways, seriously, we need to respect each other, and we need to respect each other's choices when it comes to software. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next week. Peace.